these old movies that I enjoyed and probably watched over the years again and again, which included Police Academy. So I went to watch it on streaming, but I think it was only a paid version on streaming, so I went on to eBay and I found this one, which has got the first of 4 movies in it. Comes in a nice box with each movie on a separate DVD. And so far I've watched the first 3. So this weekend I'm going to watch 4, which is Citizens on Patrol. So so I thought to myself, this might make a good chance to good video where I just talk about some of the highlights from a few of the different movies that I enjoy, and the premise is that they go to the train as police officers. There's my favourite is Hightower, who in there I think he used to be a florist before joining the police academy. They go on their first assignment. They go back to training, and then the 4th one, which I haven't watched for a while, they have all these they are these citizens that come in. I have to say, there's that Bobcat Goldthwait character in that. I don't know how to find him to be very, very, very annoying. But anyway, okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to try that over the other side there. Oh, there we go, that's that screenshot. Now another great movie that I just mentioned earlier on is Revenge of the Nerds 1 and Revenge of the Nerds 2, which is, I think the basic premise is that there's these nerds from another USA movie. They go to Fort Lauderdale, which I think is a big spring breakdown, and nobody wants the nerds around, and then somehow or other, it's a bit shiny, that one. That's a bit better. Nobody wants the nerds around, so the jocks don't want the nerds around, and they get kicked out of their regular hotel and sent to a pretty crummy hotel. And it's how they get their revenge, I suppose. And my favourite actress, one of my favourite actresses in them, which is Courtney Thorne-Smith, the young Courtney Thorne-Smith, which she does a great job in this one, and I've always liked her in 2.5 Men, where she sort of played off Ellen in that. She was Lindsay McElroy, played off Ellen, Charlie Harper's brother, and so and she was in Melrose Place, but I never watched that. And I used to watch a bit of According to Jim, which she was in. I thought, so which was quite good. Okay, Slide Revenge of the Nerds back. It's another good movie from the 1980s, I suppose, isn't it? Oh, it's actually got the What Happens in there too in the back. Hilarious satire on college life about a group of outcasts who start their own fraternity after being rejected by every house on campus. It's a brains v brawn battle when the football team jocks try to crush their misfit counterparts, but the nerds have the perfect plan to gain the upper hand. So that's this one. They're both from the 1980s, and the following movie is so good that I have to have 2 copies of it. Didn't really realise I had 2 copies, but it's an Australian movie it's right next to the airport, and anybody who owned it would sort of jump at the chance of it being relocated, being bought out by the government to expand the airport, but they say no, we're going to fight it. And there's some funny lines in it. Wayne's in prison. Dale goes to visit Wayne, and he says Wayne says, "How's Mum?" And Dale says, "Good." And Wayne says, "How's Dad?" "Good." "How's Trace?" "Good." And how's Steve? I think he's okay. And then Wayne says, "Good." Yes. Quite funny lines. And then Gracie is the only one that has had has gone on after school, and she's got a hairdressing diploma. There's nothing wrong with that, but he makes sort of a big deal about it all. And Dale comes home and said, "What did you do today, Dale?" And Dale said, "I dug a hole." And Dad gets so excited, he kept saying, "Dale dug a hole." Which is pretty good. Another funny bit that I really like, when the mum serves up dinner a few times in the movie with different cakes and stuff, and he says, what do you call this, Dale?" And she says, rissoles. So I think rissoles, like, just in case you don't call them something else, it's just rissoles. It's just mince, with a bit of onion and held together with egg. And, you fry that in the pan. So, he's raving about rissoles, saying how great they are. So it's quite a funny Australian movie that I could watch again and again, and another movie, or actually 6. I don't realise I had so many of these ones. I think it's that order. Which is from the 2000s, I think. interesting. So, what else did I have to tell you about Sharknado? Oh yeah. So a few years ago when for the first time I got that influenza type of illness. That I don't know if I'm allowed to mention that. At one point I wasn't allowed to mention that word, but I suppose you can guess what it is. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, I was okay, but I just wasn't feeling 100%. So I had a couple of days just sort of lying on the lounge, and I watched, I think it was 5 out of the 6 Sharknados over those 2 days. And I found them all on streaming except for one, and they start off pretty terrible, and they kind of get worse and worse. But it's worthwhile watching. Well, if you've got, if you'd like to have a bit of a laugh, what does the back say, I wonder? Oh yeah, can't believe how much I loved it. It has to be seen to be believed, yeah. Oh, and the good thing, I don't want to ruin the movie for you, so if you don't want to see it, you don't want to miss the ending, you don't want me to ruin the ending, I'll just tell you the ending, which was quite good. So these sort of sharks are dropping to earth and chewing people up, and unfortunately, and towards the end of the movie, Ian Zero, actually his name is Finn Shepherd in the show, he's split up from his wife, and Will marries the wife, and there's 2 kids. He's really tough, and he's pussy. And then in 2, and that's Will Ferrell and his dad. Mark Wahlberg's dad is Mel Gibson. He's sort of tougher than Mark, and I think John Cena gets a run in it too as a I think Mark Wahlberg's new wife, I can't remember his name, is the thing. John Cena, she has a child. I think John Cena's supposed to be the dad, the John Cena, whoever character John Cena's playing, is the dad. Okay, so yeah, it's kind of funny. There's a good basketball scene in there. Will Ferrell gets drunk. I could watch that again and again. And he gets the free throw at